Okay, well, hello everybody. My name's Maria Demopoulos and I'm the CEO of the Settlement Council of Australia. Let me just start by firstly acknowledging that we are on the
That's
lands.
better. Now I've got you.
There you go, Steve. I'm
That's
just saying hi to everybody and acknowledging country, that we're on the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people right now, and acknowledge, of course, the ongoing sovereignty and custodianship of the first peoples of this land, the oldest living culture on this earth. Steve, I am very aware that you are going to leave us very soon. And
Normally,
I had such a beautiful bio prepared for you. And of course,
I will come back though.
And as a fellow Greek, though, I also wanted to talk about the Language Day yesterday and all the great publicity that you had. But look, I'm not going to do that because I know that there are 40 odd people that have just joined us around the virtual room who probably want to hear from you and not me. And of course, what we thought we'd do is when you needed to step out, we might continue to have the consultation around what are the sorts of agenda issues that the Standing Committee could really take on. So, Steve, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you.
I'm going to be very rude, unfortunately.
Not at all. You're a busy person.
The bells have just gone.
Oh, no.
So I'm going to leave. I'd say in about 10 minutes at the most.
Okay.
15 at the worst, I'll be back. But Meg is on from my office as well, who will listen to but I will be back, and I'm so sorry. Normally we don't have divisions at 12 o'clock, but today for some reason they must have known that I'm doing this and they wanted to muck us up, but that's just my thinking.
Absolutely fine.
So sorry. I'll be back in about 10 15 minutes.
We will hold the fort, Steve.
Okay,
Thank you. Well, I might take the opportunity to thank everybody around the virtual room for joining us. I'm hoping that you can be patient. Of course, it's part and parcel of the work that we do whenever we are engaging in political leaders. Two options here, folks. We could actually have a broad conversation and use the opportunity to think about what are the sorts of issues that we'd like the Standing Committee to take on when we think about the settlement sector. To give you some context, when SCOA met with Steve, who, as you know, is the chair of the Standing Committee. For those of you that don't know, he's a federal member for Adelaide, chair of the Joint Standing Committee on Migration. Look, when we met with him, can I say he was so engaged and so keen to ensure that he was getting the sort of, I suppose, on the ground insight into the range of issues and challenges that were presenting for our sector. And that's when we thought we'd invite him to have a listen to what some of the issues are. You probably also know that the committee's recently just finished an extensive inquiry into skilled migration to Australia, and I know that some of you around the room contributed to that. So we were going to get a little bit of an update from him around were there any sort of early insights that he could share. But so really, we could just open the floor up to anything that you'd like to see, any questions you'd like to put to him. As he said, he's expecting to come back in about 10 or 15 minutes. But yeah, let me open it up to the floor. I don't think it's worth kind of turning us all off and on. Yeah. Hello, everybody. How's your morning been? Dane, you submitted to the inquiry?
We did, yes.
Yes. What would you like to be saying to Steve Georganas?
Yeah, two things. Firstly, no surprise, but talking about overseas skills and qualifications recognition.
Yeah.
So we know from our research that there are, around 620,000 permanent migrants in Australia working below their skill level. And what may surprise Steve and the committee is that 2/3 of migrants working below their skill level came through the skilled migration program. So these are people Australia specifically selected for their expertise, and that they're unable to contribute that expertise fully here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it'd be great in this report inquiry to see the committee back in the calls for skills recognition reform, fixing the system so we can get the most from the migration program. And so, yeah, migrants in the country already and those still to come here can fully contribute.
Yeah.
So yeah, first and foremost, I'd say that I'd love to see the committee back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of future issues for the committee to look into, it'd be great for them to do an inquiry on the newly arrived resident waiting period. So it's a 4-year waiting period for permanent residents to access social security, like the childcare subsidy, financial support. And it used to be only 6 months, 20 years ago, but now it's 4 years. And there's been no assessment of its actual impacts. And we hear anecdotally that it has some really perverse impacts in terms of actually entrenching underemployment or unemployment, rather than the assumption is you take away any form of support and you incentivize people to get employment. Like that's an assumption that's probably not articulated. But in actual fact, when ACOS has looked into Social Security more broadly, when you have broad access to Social Security and a well-funded Social Security system, you actually get better employment outcomes.
Yeah.
And having this 4-year waiting period, no one's reviewed it, but my guess is it's actually having some really bad long-term outcomes for permanent migrants. So it'd be great for the committee to inquire into that issue.
Yeah, thanks, Dane. So what we'll be doing, folks, is compiling any thoughts or suggestions that you might have about potential inquiries or issues that the committee could be looking on. So we'll put all of this together. That's why we really wanted some member input. But Gillian, I noticed that you are online as a board member, of course, of SCOA. Can I invite you perhaps to reflect on any issues through your lens that you think might be useful? I know you were there, Gillian. I saw you as she left us. Or Clement. I can see Clement there as well. Oh, I'm really putting our board members on the spot here. Where are you all? Huh? Vivian, I saw you there. Any thoughts around the work that you've been doing?
I'm here.
Yeah, good. I know you've been very, very busy of late. Anything from your perspective and the work that you're doing?
I mean, look, our work is primarily on the CRISP, though we have been looking at how we can marry a bit of that community sponsorship model to support people coming through the skilled labour pilot that is run by TBB. And, just really, I think, agreeing with what Jane has said around the need for that settlement support and the skills, the skills of recognition to a lesser extent, because they're all coming through a specific pathway with job offers already. But I think that settlement component's been really interesting for us to see how community can fill in some of those gaps as well. But I think primarily more to listen and learn today. Thank you for convening it.
Yeah, no, well, thank you for coming in on it. Anybody, Niha, see, you shouldn't have put your camera on. That's great. Anything that you would like to see? How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I think I missed something. I don't know.
What we're doing, Niha, it's because Steve has had to dash out for 10 minutes. He'll be back shortly. Okay. We're using the opportunity, given that he is the chair of the standing committee, whether there are any issues on the ground in the sector that you're seeing that we'd like to put to him as future inquiries, future issues that they might like to ask a few more questions around. So it's an opportunity for the sector really to identify emerging challenges, particular areas of concern and so on. Anything that you might like to share?
I think still the two main concern remains is cost of living, the first thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing is getting degree accredited in this.
Yeah.
Qualifications getting accredited. I
Yes,
think that's
yeah.
the main two concerns I can remember on top of my mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
And certainly, yes, Dane raised some of the key issues from their perspective in Activate Australia, of course, and the submission that you put through, Dane. Anybody? Anybody else? No? Yes.
Hi, Maria. You see the danger of putting your camera
on. It is, but this is good. This is the point of these
exactly.
Sessions.
I'm from AIMS Australia,
Yes.
so I'm a bit like others. I'm here to listen as much, but we also put a submission in, and clearly I think the public perception of skilled migrants has to be dealt with in terms of, that, well, it goes right to the point of even housing and etc. So I think it's actually that much stronger message and the benefits of people, and that's part of what AIMS actually put into their submission. I do think, and I'm just, funnily enough, dealing with a research project that's going on, which is around recognising medical overseas trained doctors and how we can push that through. So the the CPP that was funded early 2017, the pilot, and seeing if it's all well and good to have inquiries. We actually need action as a result of it, I think, Maria. So we know there's been some good programs that have been evaluated and potentially will work or adjusted or whatever. And really the cost of perhaps whether it's an engineer, a doctor, a pharmacist, whatever their skills we actually need in the country. And this is humanitarian; these are humanitarian entrants. And the return on investment would be huge. The 50,000 you might devote is coming back very, very soon through, taxes and actually services to communities that badly need them. And the communities, having the cultural perspective of, in this instance, doctors from their own countries that actually understand and it would benefit everybody, one would assume.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tess. Really appreciate it. I mean, that is the hope, that we get some feedback from him about what some of the preliminary, it might be too soon. When was the closing date? I think it's only just, I'm also keen to hear from him though about the role, the ongoing role that our services can play in that conversation and dialogue, of course. Thanks for that, Tess. Hi, Ziba, how are you? Good to see you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ziba, and I'm one of the community development worker at STARS based in Albany, in Sydney.
Yes.
Very nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Yeah, and you. Any thoughts around key issues that you'd like to see a body like the Standing Committee take on?
For people from refugee background specifically?
Yeah.
I think there are a number of factors affecting in refugee cohort. One is actually settlement, specifically the transition from the their country into the host country. Which is very, very difficult for them due to language barrier, due to post-traumatic disorders, mental health issues, housing issues, and of course, like the generational gap recently identified within the community as well, because children actually adapt the host society very quickly, and parents are struggling to keep up with the birth cultures, which is now actually the gap between older member of the community with a new young people is a huge now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That intergenerational issue I've certainly heard raised by a few of the services in the consultations we've done in the past. So thank you. Any other thoughts from around the virtual room? Goodness, I've never thought of this sector as one that to remain quiet ever. Anyone? Yeah. Joey.
Yeah. Hi, Maria.
How
my
are
name is
you?
Gabriel. I'm well. How are you? Hi, everyone. I'm from Spectrum Migrant Resource Center in Melbourne. I'm myself a skilled immigrant. I came back in 2007.
Right.
I was expecting, some kind of connection with employers, but there is no one to welcome you, or, it's up to you whether to find a job or to end up driving a taxi. It's all up to you. So I think my suggestion is, if Australia needs skilled migrants, there should be a kind of, a little connection or networking support at least.
Yeah.
For the, skilled people to be utilized. Sometimes there is a waste of those skilled migrants because they are left by their own. So some, may not serve the purpose the country, Australia, intended.
Yeah.
So I think this is my suggestion from my own personal experience.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certainly been a lot of conversation about extending settlement services to skilled migrants. So I think that's a really important point that I hear a lot as well. So thank you for sharing that.
No, thank you, Maria. Thank you.
Sharon, you put your camera on. We were just saying that there are certain risks associated with doing that.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Please, any thoughts?
Look, I'm just going to reiterate. I agree both with Zeba and everyone else who's talked about the school migrants, but also the overseas qualification recognition. Now, in here, we've set up a program with the facilitator, employment facilitators.
Okay.
Reason being around that is that we have now got a group of about 12, and then we're referring them to other organisations to support them as well.
Right.
What we did find is one of the doctors that's in there has been here 15 years.
Wow.
And she's going around in circles, literally trying to work out a way from beginning to end. We lost one already. We had one we employed, and she's actually gone back to America.
Right.
Which, she was a fully qualified doctor over here, pediatrician, and to listen to her was amazing. But it took her 1.5 years to get to where she had to get to, which wasn't even getting her qualification recognized. She worked with us. She got an offer in America, and she went to America. So it's disappointing to see that the shortage that we have here in the recognition, and we were talking about it not long ago, when you look at the skills of our doctors, especially who've worked overseas in such situations that we don't even see here. What are we asking for qualifications? They are so qualified in their own space. If you take our medical doctors and put them in those circumstances, would the reverse apply?
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't consider the situations they've come from.
Yeah.
And how well they work and what they actually do in those situations. And yet we're asking them to demonstrate qualifications. So experience is not considered in any way whatsoever. And that obviously is, I understand all of that in here. The other thing also is the IOM.
Yeah.
We are seeing a lot of clients coming here. This has been ongoing though, Maria, what it is that the expectation is when they come here.
Yeah.
And they still are very unfamiliar with, or the expectation is very different to what they have been told over there when they come here. And I guess the conversation is around how can we improve that from this end? What is it that we need to do? Can we build that information? How can we work with IOM in some way? Is there a way we can contribute? I don't know. To also, before they even come here, to get a better understanding, because we're hearing that as well. And especially from those who've come here.
Thanks, Sharon. Thank you very much. Steve is back.
Yep.
We're back.
Sorry about that.
Well, that was 15 minutes. You were right.
If I usually been here for so many years, I can usually judge what time frame it'll be, but 10 to 15 minutes.
That's great. Are you likely to be called out again, Steve, or this is good?
You never know. All it takes is someone to get up.
Well, then I'm going to stop talking because I did try and say a few things and they're all obviously just keen to hear from you. So, yeah. Steve, I've introduced you, a little bit of background to your extraordinary career and service to our communities. I'm just going to hand it over to you if that's all right.
Well, thank you very much, Maria, yeah. And thank you to everyone, and thank you for your patience, more importantly. But this place up here is there's no coordination, there's no agenda. We come up with a diary every day and an agenda of what's going to be debated, but all it takes is one person to get up and say, I move that we change the standing orders, and it has to go to a vote. And so, yeah, you just never know in Parliament what's going to happen next. But that's part of our democracy and part of our democracy, and we're very lucky to be in it. But Maria's done the introduction. My name is Steve Georganas. I'm the federal member for the seat of Adelaide, which is smack bang in the middle of Adelaide, the CBD, with about 8 kilometres around the CBD. I have a very, very diverse constituency, pretty well every nationality you can think of, religion, language. I think the last stats I looked at, there was about 150 different languages spoken in my electorate. I come from a migrant background myself, like Maria, even though my parents settled here many, many years ago. In the 50s, I was elected in 2004. For the first time, and have been re-elected since, except for 2013 when I spent 3 years out and then was re-elected in 2016. But just before I go on to what you really want to hear, I just a bit of a preamble. What drove me to be a member of Parliament, I suppose, is having come from a migrant background, parents who migrated here from a country that was war-torn after World War II. On top of that, a 5-year civil war, which decimated the entire economy, decimated anything that existed in infrastructure. So my parents left and they came to Australia in 1953. And when I think of their journey and I think of my journey, here I am today standing before you as a federal member of Parliament. And I don't think there's any other country in the world that would have given that opportunity and the same chance to my family anywhere in the world. And one of the things that drives me every day is that those opportunities that existed for me as a child of migrants, and for Maria and many other people that are here, I want those same opportunities to exist for the next lot of migrants and for migrants who have been here for years and for the next generation of Australians. So it's really important, I think, just to put that in context of number one, how lucky we are to be in Australia, and lucky because there was opportunities, equality, and a whole range of other things that existed. And that gave the opportunity to me and my parents to prosper in this wonderful nation. And we want to make sure we can continue to do that for generations to come, for everyone, including people that settle early, migrants that come regardless of how they came here. Once they're here, we should be doing everything we can. Once they're permanent residents, to embrace them, to assist them, to help them, and to make sure that all those opportunities that have existed for generations continue to exist. But look, the role that I have in Parliament is chair of the Migration Committee. It's a standing committee. It's a joint standing committee, which means there's senators and members of the House of Reps. The joint standing committee means that we always have to have a senator present or a House of Reps member present for it to be in quorum. We represent all political parties, with the chair always being from the governing party, and that's the Labor Party. I've been on and off the Migration Committee for a number of years. From 2004, I've served on it. A few years I was out, back on, etc. But it gives me great satisfaction to be on this particular committee because of my background and what I just explained to you. The committee doesn't have powers to change laws. We don't have powers to investigate individual cases, and we don't have powers to give court directions to anyone or to basically legislate in any way. The role of the committee is basically investigative. in terms of the broad policy area and in terms of ensuring that when the government is perhaps thinking of a particular policy or just want to look into something in terms of doing some research and getting the best possible information for the Parliament to develop that policy, they usually ask a committee, a joint standing committee, to do an inquiry. Very different from Senate committees that pop up from time to time to deal with specific legislation. So we've been tasked to conduct a inquiry into skilled migration at the moment. It's the first inquiry of this 48th Parliament that the Migration Committee has undertaken. We've just finished, just closed the submissions just recently, and the next step is that we will go out and have inquiries, public hearings where people can come and talk to us face to face. We've received, I think, over 160 so far submissions, and even though submissions have closed, we'll still receive things that we think are important. We'll still come to the committee and we'll still consider them and use them as evidence as well. But the inquiries about examining the ongoing economic value of skilled migration, taking into consideration the workforce, participation, business growth, innovation, but also looking and including the social aspects and cultural benefits that strengthen our community, through diversity, multicultural identity, and encourages cultural exchange. So the inquiry will evaluate the effectiveness of Australia's current skilled migration settings, referring to the present needs of different states around the country and regional areas, and the future workforce demands, and taking into effect the impacts of housing supply, infrastructure, capacity, and regional versus metropolitan needs. So the overall aim of the inquiry is to identify sectors that have urgent skill shortages and consider how our migration can support essential services and address those national, local and regional workforce gaps. So this is to support Australian businesses, productivity and innovation, and we also hope to optimise the productivity gains from skilled migration, because I don't think people really dwell into that to see that there are massive gains from skilled migration, the innovation potential, industry competitiveness, and how skills from overseas can complement our Australian talent, but also something very important, which I think is one of the most important aspects of the inquiry. All of what I've said is very important, but to consider strategies to improve the public awareness about the role that skilled migration plays in the Australian economy and how the economy benefits. So it's about finding ways to address misconceptions and reinforce that confidence in the migration system. And unfortunately, for many years, we've been using migration as a political football, and it's very unfair when you think of the history of this nation. Migration has been, the bedrock of this country, from right back from early settlers right through. Every wave has brought something solid with it that has benefited the country. So it's really important to get that confidence back. And so we want to look at ways of how we can actually improve that public awareness of how important skilled migration is. So that's a bit of a nutshell. What we're doing is we'll be travelling the country to every capital city and major regional areas. We'll be inviting different groups to come and give us evidence. Many of the groups have already flagged that they want to give us evidence face-to-face at public hearings. And I think we're kicking off in Adelaide in a few weeks with the first public inquiry, then moving to Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Darwin, and in between some regional areas, but also having people coming into Canberra as well that are a bit closer on Fridays or sitting weeks. And you are most welcome to appear before the committee. The committee, as I said, does important work with coming up with the best recommendations that we'll possibly be able to come up with. And those recommendations will come from the people that have submitted to our inquiry. Those recommendations are then put into a report. That report will go to the government, to the minister, in this case, the Minister for Home Affairs. And then it's up to the Minister whether he endorses all the recommendations and puts them into public policy, whether he picks the best ones that he thinks will make the most difference and leaves a few behind, or ignore the report altogether. Of course, there has to be good reasons to ignore the report, but it's not to say that it hasn't happened. So we have no powers over the ministerial process, but what we do is come up with the research and recommendations that we think as a committee, from hearing from people like yourselves, to put it into a report and give it to the Minister. In most cases, the recommendations are adopted, maybe not in full, but bits and pieces, or new policy will be developed with those recommendations in there. What I would encourage settlement groups to do is to liaise continuously with there's aspects of it. There's I suppose there's the individual groups all around the country. And I have a very good relationship with the groups in my electorate, and whether I'm the chair of this committee or not, we have constant meetings, etc. So I get to hear all the things that are happening on the ground, and it's important to brief your members of parliament, federal members of parliament. So therefore, our role as members of parliament is to feed that back to the ministers, whether it be in writing, through conversations. So that's one aspect that I would encourage all of you to, when you see issues in your electorates, things that perhaps are not working correctly, or something that you feel is of unconsequential results of a particular policy, let your members of parliament know, make that the first priority. And then I suppose the other way to deal with these things and actually get some change made is through your peak bodies, such as yourselves, who would meet regularly up here in Canberra, or with the ministers, or with the committee, for example, and then we feed things through. It's always good to keep good research, briefings, everything from questionnaires with your client groups, right through to research that you individually do to feed through again, preferably to a committee like ours, which basically looks at all the evidence that comes in and then can basically put those recommendations together to give to the minister. So there's many ways of actually engaging with the parliamentary process when policy is being developed. There's also other standalone committees, non-parliamentary committees that have been formed by the government, and it's always good to feed into them as well. There's quite a few on the federal sphere, and I know that some of you already feed into them in terms of what works best and what doesn't work best. So there's some of the things. It's very very broad, very sort of I don't want to use the word wishy-washy, but it just gives you a bit of a background of how I go about my work and how this committee will go about its work as well. We would welcome you and love to have you come and appear before us at one of our
Steve,
public hearings.
just on that question, one of the things that we started talking about was, and it may be too early, but are there any emerging themes or issues coming out from the written submissions where we might build on it or really use some of the expertise, so that when some of us want to make that appearance, we really are utilising that opportunity to add to some of those themes? Is there anything you can share?
Number one, we've heard from industry, and industry is telling us that they have a massive skills shortage in terms of, and all different types of skills are being thrown around, and obviously we'll look into that. So that's one area that's emerging quite strongly already through the submissions that have been made. The second area is regional areas, and their problem is even worse than the city areas in terms of skills. But something that's already emerging in those regional areas is the settlement seems to be much smoother and better. Just some of the submissions that we've had already. which is interesting. Maybe a small community, people get to know one another, and there's more support in terms of engaging with your community, because you've got no choice. You're there in that small community. So that's just something very positive, things that we're hearing in some of those small communities. This is only in submissions at this point, not in public hearings. So there are just a couple of things that are coming out. The other thing that is really in my state of South Australia that we've already had some submissions is the defence build that's taking place. We've got the AUKUS submarines that are being built, defence ships, a whole range of things. And the predictions are, we've had industry come and talk to us, everything from defence industry to some of these big prime companies that are involved in the defence build, that within the next 10 years, we're going to need a workforce, highly skilled workforce of approximately 30,000 people in South Australia. And that is just, it's impossible to get without, obviously, training more people, but also ensuring that we can leverage skilled migration to be able to fill those gaps. So they're just some of the things that are already coming out. The other thing that I've noticed as well with some of the submissions is people who have settled here in Australia quite recently, have skills, great skills. And I'll give you a quick example of one. A chap from Croatia, head mechanic in Zagreb, Mercedes-Benz. So we're talking about someone that's very competent, knew what they were doing.
Trish, can we ask that you put yourself on mute, please? Trish? Oh. Can I get maybe, thank you.
Okay, great. And here's a classic example. Worked in Zagreb for 15 years as the head mechanic in the sales room of Mercedes-Benz. So all new sales of Mercedes-Benz, they come back, they get serviced. He was in charge of that whole thing. Moves to Adelaide because he met his wife, etc. Gets a job at Mercedes-Benz head office in Adelaide, but they can't pay him as a mechanic because they don't recognise his certificate. Yet he has letters and support from Adelaide Mercedes-Benz saying he's so competent and we want to put him on a mechanic's wage. And yet no one actually explained to him that there are bridging courses to be able to go to TAFE and do this bridging course, which he's doing at the moment. And we hope within the next 6 months, it'll all be recognised and he'll be able to be ticked off and work and get paid on mechanic rates. But there's a little example of people falling through the gaps when they're quite competent. So there's a bit of a pattern there coming through as well.
Yeah. Steve, you mentioned, and I'm going to open it up to questions if that's all right with you from around the virtual room, but do you think there's an appetite? One of the issues that I hear quite often is, do we need to be extending settlement support services to skilled migrants? I mean, historically, there's been a view that settlement is largely refugee and humanitarian entrants. Is this an opportunity to be putting a case forward where some kind of investment in that settlement ecosystem needs to be made with skilled migration? There's been an assumption historically that people don't need it. And even just before, we were having a bit of a conversation about how it is required, how often just even that orientation process employers don't necessarily implement.
I tend to agree with you. I think it's a great idea. Classic example, the guy at Mercedes-Benz came over as a skilled migrant as a mechanic, then realised that they wouldn't recognise his certificate. So obviously checks weren't done beforehand to let him know. But no one actually told him that you can go and do a bridging course. Had he come to a settlement agency or someone like yourselves, they would have investigated and found out, he came through us and we assisted him. But obviously, I think it's very important in terms of just knowing your community, knowing where to go, where to pay the bills, how do you hop on a bus, what do you ask for when you want a ticket to get on the bus, what the system is, all those basic things that we take for granted every day. It would be very difficult for any migrant, whether you're a skilled migrant or whether you're a refugee. It still takes navigating and having basically a place that has the source of information to assist you. So I think it's important that we do have a process where settlement agencies can assist people that come out on skilled visas. Of course, you're going to, maybe the level of assistance isn't the same, but some of the basic stuff is no different, absolutely no different.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And
I am going to open that up. Yeah. How are you placed? Do you keep on? I noticed that you've been checking phones and other things. You're still okay? Still
That's
good?
all right. Yeah, we're okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'll ask people if they've got questions. Anyone?
Sure.
Yep.
Someone's got.
Yep. Here we go. Antoinette.
Thank you. I don't really echo that. A lot of skilled migrants, when they came to Australia, I think that meant that somebody used maybe quite lucky that they had a good employer. But many of them, they need a lot of assistance to know where to find work. And secondly, not only the overseas qualification, and because they are not part of the settlement program, and the local employment service are not interested in them because they are not receiving any government payment, Centrelink payment. So employment service not interested in helping them to get a job because they don't get what we call outcome payment.
Yeah.
Many of them, they become a COVID is they probably spend the first 2-3 years just going around and around, couldn't get a job in their own occupation, in their own profession. So they maybe end up get a job at delivery, Uber Eats deliver, a taxi driver. Something is we feel really wasted their profession. They come as skilled migrant, but they are not using the skill. My second question will be, you said that to have which occupation will be identified as a high priority because you got feedback from the industry. Can you? We are also a aged care provider, where care worker crisis have been there for probably last 5-6 years. And any migration program to helping to get in more care workers to come in. They are not typical identified as skilled migrant, but we really need more people speak a community language and happy to coming to the aged care workforce.
Okay, I think the first question was about migrants who aren't employment agencies that aren't assisting because they're not getting paid for that particular client, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the second one was the priorities in terms of skilled migrations and the list, how it comes out. Certainly that's what we're looking at the moment. One of the priorities, and I'll start with the second question, one of the priorities is healthcare workers and anything to do with health at the moment. That is number one on the list, pretty well at the top of the list, in terms of bringing people, whether from doctors right through to aged care workers that can care for elderly people or people that are in need. So that is number one on the priority list at the moment. And we've had some submissions from different people in the industry, and we're waiting to hear that evidence to sit with them and talk to them and gather that information. We'll then come up with an area where we're not going to come up with a skills list as a committee. That's not our job. Our job is to say that there are certain industries that require more skilled workers, and we haven't got enough, and we need to bring out more people in terms of making it more attractive for them. So that's an area, as I said, health workers is number one priority, from doctors right down to care workers. In terms of employment agencies, there's a great one that comes to mind, one in my electorate, who have done some magnificent work with forming partnerships with industry groups, employers, and basically having such a great relationship that they're having a fantastic success rate with people who basically have where they've actually set up an agency where they actually do get paid from the industry for providing the employer for providing the gap that they have. And they're doing it with migrant workers, but not just they have a complete intensive course, English language, skills, upgrading their skills by sending them off to TAFE and other areas, working intensively with the client, but also working intensively with the agency. And they have a system, because this has been raised with us before, they also have a system with the industry groups who are so satisfied with the results they're getting with the type of employees that they are getting from this employment group, that they're actually paying a fee for each one that they're putting into place. So that makes it an incentive, but it's taken a lot of hard work. It's taken a lot of relationship building with industry groups and with different businesses. And they have everything from the shops that are called On the Run right through to the Commonwealth Bank, and a great success rate. And in fear of getting their name wrong, I don't want to name them, but if anyone wants to find out who they are, I'm happy to talk to you later.
Thank you for that. Other questions? Yep, Dane, thank you.
Hi, Dane.
Thank you. Hi, thanks very much for your time. I'm Dane Moores. I lead advocacy at Settlement Services International, including our campaign called Activate Australia's Skills, which did make a submission. So just wanted to pick up on the theme emerging around overseas skills and qualifications recognition. And happy to share more at a hearing, but I actually think it would be very valuable to hear from some of the high commissions and embassies potentially on what other countries have done, because we are familiar with, Canada, Germany, UK, reforming their approach to skills recognition in recent years. And in particular, really recommend the committee to look into the model in Germany, where they have a National Recognition Act, mandated timeframes of skills recognition decisions in 2 to 4 months, a national online portal in language on how to get skills and qualifications recognized by state and by profession, and 60 recognition advice centers across the country which support migrants through the skills recognition process. And I know this because I've been speaking with counterparts in Germany on their program, and we've written up case studies and we can share, but I actually think that it would be very useful for the committee to hear directly from the German High Commission and some of the other embassies, because there's some proven models that have worked overseas. And I know Australia's been grappling with this issue for some time, but now we actually have some examples to draw on of very practical and impactful reforms. Because, as a country, we don't want to be left behind, and this is obviously a competitive marketplace. And ultimately, we want the best employment outcomes for migrants who choose to come to Australia. So I just wanted to throw that idea into the mix as you consider planning your hearings.
Thank you, Dane. And I've got a big smile on my face. There's a reason, because tomorrow at midday, we're meeting with the German delegation from the Parliamentary Committee face-to-face here in our Parliament. They just happen to be over here, and they've asked to meet with us because of our committee work and the inquiry that we're conducting. So we do actually visit each other occasionally. We even do, not with Germany, but we've done in the last Parliament, we had a committee meeting with our counterparts in the UK and other places. You're quite right. And part of this inquiry is looking at and comparing and looking at other countries that are similar to us, like the United States, Canada, Europe. But having said that, there was, and there's always things to learn of how we can do the skilled migration stuff much better. But only last week I came across a brief that was doing a comparison of United States, Canada, and Europe. Europe as the EU, and the outcome was that we do it much better. Now I don't know in terms of, but it took everything into aspect. It also took into consideration the settlement process, the basic cultural aspects, and the embracing of new migrants as well. That was all part of the report. And we came up trumps, like 10 points above every other country. And the nearest comparable one was Canada, but we were even better than Canada. Now, I don't know what sort of report, it was just something that came across my desk and I quickly looked at it the other day. But you're quite right. Part of this inquiry is looking at other countries and Germany tomorrow. So I'm really keen and interested to see what they've got to say and how they do things, especially the skilled migration, because they are renowned for their skills. And I think, you know, if you look at skills processes around the world, I don't think there'd be anyone that has the high benchmark like Germany. So it'd be quite interesting to speak to them. We do get the embassies in. I think we've got the Korean embassy coming in to talk to us in a few weeks. But we've notified all the embassies to come and talk to us as well. So good point made, but big smile because just as you're saying that, just coincidentally, we've got them coming in there visiting Australia and we'll be speaking with them tomorrow.
Thank you. Thanks. Great question, Dane. Sarah, you've got your hand up as well.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't get my camera to work. Thanks for the speech, and sorry if I've had to jump in a little bit late, so I'm sorry if this has been covered, but I just wanted to ask, because I'm joining from a regional area, so we're out in the Wimmera, northwest Victoria, and the Dharma scheme has been historically pretty it's been a bit patchy, but it's ultimately, I think the consensus is it's been really beneficial for regional areas, but it's also been on pause for a long time as part of this review. So I was wondering whether or not there was a bit of a timeline on the Dharmas and when submissions will be reopened for those.
Yeah, well, the Dharma is obviously it's a formal agreement with the Australian government and the state territory regional authorities. And this is the one that provides access for more occupations than the standard skill migration program, which is basically occupations where they might not be on that list but are needed in regional areas. I think currently there's 13 in place. 13 in place already in the country, and they will be opening very soon. I'm not sure. I can find out for you when the next batch will be opening.
I think in terms of the review, sorry, just in terms of the review, I guess it's kind of the model, because at the moment it's the local governments that negotiate them with the federal government.
Yeah, and state government, local government negotiating with the feds, but 13 have been put in place thus far. So I suppose it'll be ongoing discussions, and but it is specifically look, and I think it does a great job, because it's one thing to require a surgeon in, you know, let's just say surgeons in the CBD of Sydney, whereas in Toowoomba it might be a kitchen hand that you just can't get anyone, and that's what this Dharma thing is, to look at regional areas and give them a separate listing of what may or may not be required, or individual. So I think it's a very good program. 13 are up and running. I think we need more around the country to make sure that we do fill those gaps in those regional areas. And we'll be coming out to regional areas as well to hear face to face from people.
Could I ask a second question? Would that be okay?
Yeah, yes.
Sure. I'm just conscious of time. We've got 6 minutes, but go for it, Sarah.
Thank you. I just in terms of, because obviously the skilled migration pathway is a really specific pathway of settlement, and it can be quite sort of specialist and technical, whereas the SETS program itself is quite general by design. So I was wondering, and maybe requesting, in terms of feedback around the skilled migration program. I guess for us in regional areas, it's been quite problematic in terms of what the visa incentives are versus what the supports might be. And I was just wondering whether or not, just in the review, and certainly looking at places like Canada, who do take a much more holistic approach to whole family settlement on the skilled programs, whether or not the federal government might be sort of considering a specific set support around industry partnerships and skilled migration, which could sort of work alongside the SETS program, because as practitioners, we often don't have the time, resources, certainly not the partnerships already in place to kind of really implement that in the whole kind of context of our SETS programs. So I was just wondering whether or not there is any consideration to that sort of specialist settlement.
Well, this is what the inquiry will come up with. We'll hear from people like yourself who will give us the intricate details of how it's working, how it's not working, how particular occupations outside those highly skilled occupations that are listed are in need in regional areas. And as I said, we'll be collating all the information, and certainly if it's an issue, or if we're being told by people like yourself through submissions that this is the way we should go, and there's evidence to show that it will ease the problem in a regional area, it'll be in the recommendation. So I urge you to put a submission in.
We have.
You have. Good on you. Excellent. I'm sure we'll get to it. And as I said, submissions have just closed a few weeks ago. And if there's anything further that you feel that we can put in, I'm more than happy to accept submissions. And look, the reality is with all these inquiries, we accept submissions right up to the end. If there's something in it that we think is worthwhile. If it's just repeated of what everyone else said, yep, maybe not. But if there's something intricate, I'd be more than happy. Sorry, Sarah, I didn't catch which regional area you're from.
So I'm based in Horsham. We deliver the SETS program with Wimmera Southern Valley Development. So we cover High Marsh, Horsham, Yarriambiack, Northern Grampians and West Wimmera. It's a huge footprint and a tiny program.
Yeah. Okay,
one of the things that we'd really like to do beyond today is, Steve, talk with you further about how we might coordinate some of those appearances so that we can tap into the vast array of expertise that's around the settlement services. So we'll collate all the information that's come through today and perhaps get back to you about, well, how do we ensure that your next steps really do get out there? So because I am conscious of time and we know how busy you are and very grateful to you, but in terms of next steps, is there a bit of a timeline for you?
I think the sooner the better. In terms of we're coming up with an agenda. I think our next meeting, which will be the first kickoff in Adelaide, I'd say in about 3 weeks' time, and a regional area in South Australia. At this point, I think it's Murray Bridge, mainly because of the meatworks there that have a huge shortage. So that'll be the first kickoff. Then Melbourne, Sydney, or Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and in between some of the regional areas, with the ability for people to come to Canberra on a Friday as well, a Friday morning, to give evidence. But having been around for 21 years in Parliament and served on many committees, it's great to get evidence in writing, but nothing beats that face-to-face. You can really influence and get your views across. And you'll get some of the questions. Basically, when you appear face-to-face, you'll get questions from us. And one of the questions that always comes up is, if you could change one thing, what would it be? And you get a theme across all groups that come and give evidence to us. And so you can pick up on 2 or 3 really good recommendations that really make a difference, and they go in the report. So they're the little things that perhaps you don't get by just submitting a submission, is the questioning from the committee. Look, we're hoping to have it completed sort of middle of the year, towards the end of the year. There can be an extension. But perhaps, Maria, if I send you the agenda of where we're travelling, maybe you could hook in some of the regional areas like Sarah, or let me know, and we can make sure that we go to particular regional areas that have quite a bit of a presence in terms of this space. But I'm more than happy to work with you.
We'll certainly do that and keep everybody updated. So that's the value, as you said, of a peak body. It really is to try and coordinate and support the great work that you're doing. Look, as I say, I'm conscious of time, and you are a very, very busy person. Can I extend my gratitude to you on behalf of our sector and the members? Wonderful. And we look forward to that ongoing communication. The standing committee is obviously very important one from our perspective. So thank you again, and thank you to all of you for making the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Appreciate your time. Thank you, and we'll stay in touch.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you.
See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, that was great, Steve. That was so
Thank you.
good.